Jesse takes his first steps to becoming the new Messiah. Cassidy has to settle some family issues, and Tulip learns the hard way not to bring a knife to a gunfight. Or, okay, screwdriver to a gunfight, but you know what I mean. It's the Season 3 finale of Preacher, Episode 13, The End of the Road. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review, our final of this season for Preacher. So yes, of course, spoilers as always. Alright, so love the opening that we had this week. Little peek into Jesse Custer's background, though really at that stage he would have been more of a Jesse Langell, wouldn't he? I loved how they set it up as this big kind of mysterious coming up to see Grandma Langell and her mysterious powers, and then just breaks open up and gift shop, Gator tours, everything we have, parking's $8. It was perfect. Really, again, continues to set the mood. Get to see the whole range of things that are going down in Angelville, and also basically the background of Jesse growing up after his father passed away, drinking, taking money, taking wallets from people, basically raising money for Angelville. And as much as he is enjoying being by himself, it is certainly a harsh life. Not only did we get to see the insight and the flashback to his introduction and being dunked in the swamp in that crate, but here we also see what the family is. They don't allow anything held back. All money taken, whether legitimate or illegitimate, gets submitted to the family. And that little bit of anger still living in Jesse at that point, which is why he takes it out on the chicken, so we get to see the recuperative powers, the amazingness of Grandma Langell, who we will meet more next season. This is what this setup is for, with the killing of the chicken and bringing it back to life, with the haunting terms of everything has a price. Just a bit of insight basically into where we are going to be going with Season 3 as everything ends up panning out. But right from that, we sort of flash forward up into the present, where the first thing you may notice, or at least I noticed, man, Jesse has an old phone. What is an old, like, Nokia 2600 there? I didn't catch the top, but yeah, no touch screen, basic texting, yeah, a little ancient technology carrying around there for Jesse. I love the cape that Hairstar pulls out. Seriously, did that not make him look like Elvis? First thing we thought of watching was just, he's got an Elvis cape now. And that can impress, depends on the crowd that you're going for. This one, though, a little younger than I was expecting. Best transition, though, of the episode with that beautiful fart sound right through it. Sets the tone, introduces us to the kids, was awesome, and I even left a little back and forth there where they're asking about if you could get anything, and she's like, my fart noisemaker back. You'll never get that evil thing. It was just, I love that setting in the school there. It was perfect. But as we're expecting a demonstration of the voice, we see, of course, that the voice is still not working. And I'm going to touch into some of that theories of why that might be the case a little bit later on. But what this basically sets us up for the most awesome fight ever, which is why this whole scene, fart scene transition all the way up to the end, is, of course, our scene of the week. How could it not be? If only for the awesome ejection of the magazine into the next shot. Yes, things like that don't work like that, but that didn't matter. It was perfect. I love the slow-mo. I mean, we have the setup. I was surprised that he actually fired at the Armenians. Are roving bands of armed Armenians invading Catholic schools? That really, I had no idea. I thought they were out of the country. It just completely blew my mind of armed Armenians running in. That was ridiculous enough. Then, of course, we had the gunfire, which did nothing, which I think instantly, obviously, that Jessie caught on, because he confronted Hairstar with it afterwards, that must mean this was the setup. But still, it's Jessie. There are people coming after him with knives, and he is an ass-kicking machine. Beautiful fight, totally over the top. Love pulling out the guns and the double gun butt hits. It was all perfect. The music was great. The pan to the little kids and the young nuns are like, oh, so excited. It was perfect. It was really a wonderful setup, which is, of course, why as soon as it's all wrapped up, we just have the cuffs going on, and suddenly Hairstar's cleaning up and going out and boosting it right up to the net. Of course, it was a setup. Not enough of an issue to dissuade Jessie, though, but still, just an incredible fight. Really, just setting the stage for how Hairstar's going after everything, because apparently it all comes down to getting on Jimmy Kimmel. Now, The Great Escape from Hell, starring Eugene and Hitler, was cool. I love the whole opening bit when they get through the hatch and they're running through those sort of, forested pathways and hills. It was, I had a feeling they were still in hell there, but I was also wondering, is that where the escape hatch from hell is? It's like in the mountains of Scandinavia, or up in the Peruvian Alps or something like that. Is that where they're running through, and is that where the escape hatch is? But when they did finally get down to Chiron and the ferryman to get him out of hell, I loved that they continued to play Hitler throughout all of this as sympathetic. I didn't trust him for a minute. All I was thinking through there when he's saying, okay, now you can do it there, Eugene. It's, I can't go, only you can do it. All I'm thinking is he's totally playing the sympathy card. But then he left, and everything that he was saying is working right. And I'm kept waiting for all of that, for Hitler to turn tides and jump on the boat or push him away or do something. How it worked out was perfect. I love the voice of the ferryman. Very blue collar, down to earth, just laughing at Eugene's whole, precondition there. That was awesome. I loved, finally we have the guard coming up and the face-off there, and that God is dead, and really turns it around. It looks like it's all downhill for Eugene. And then, of course, Hitler saves the day with the horn. Another great bit. I don't even know what that's for, actually. Just a lot of just great moments. Very much of a Monty Python and the Holy Grail feel to this whole scene. But the sympathy for Hitler does work. I mean, Eugene, he doesn't belong there. It's true. And I love that there was an actual escape route out. I love that everything that Hitler said was true, and he was sympathetic, and he was correct in all of it. Because even it being Hitler, there is a moment where you're saying, oh my God, Hitler just has that chance to be good for that one time. And then as soon as he takes off, don't trust Hitler. Always. That's the way it had to be. So now we have Eugene responsible. I mean, he's back. That's great. But now he's responsible for letting Hitler loose onto the world. Car crash didn't hit him. I was wondering if he was going to grab the crutch from the wounded guy and use that to help get away. But I'm sort of curious, since he's already dead and escaped from hell, can he be killed again in a regular way? Or is he protected? Is this... I don't know. I think there's going to be an interesting route that Eugene's going to be going over for next season. But yeah, just great whole sequence. I loved every moment of it. And just sort of a perfect way of ending with Eugene's final line of, shit. Yeah, shit indeed, Eugene. You just let Hitler loose on the world. Now, of course, most of the rest of the show is dealing really with kind of Tulip and Cass's whole little mini arcs and storylines. And I loved how they sort of intertwined, how Cass was able to deal with the whole Denis storyline, and has that whole thing actually led to the conflict between Jessie and Cass at the end in trying to save Tulip's life. Beautifully done, but let's jump off into this first with the whole Cass and Denis story. It had to be wrapped up. It's the end of the season. I certainly can't take them to Bimini. Things aren't going to go that well anyway. But I loved how we just have Cassidy again confirming his suspicions and not really wanting to make that choice for Denis, not really wanting to make that confrontation, even though he knows what's going on. And once he ran into the vampire blood fetish site, whatever that was definitely vampire porn. Saw it in Cass's face, saw what it did to him, that sort of exposure, which led to that whole kind of dream sequence with Tulip, which was cool, was definitely frightening because they took it long enough where it did feel like that was actually happening. I mean, we knew that it wasn't, but it felt like it did. And ends up just being his sort of imagining, which is why he ends up having to confront Denis at the end, because Denis' willingness to push the limit and certainly push things between Cass and Tulip, or push Cass towards Tulip in that sense. Cassidy knew that he could not maintain that control. And I had one question about that. Considering it was smoking crack there to try and relax, maybe soothe his urges, I wonder if that's part of Cass's whole deal. Is, yes, he is a weak individual, but is part of his drug use also in a way to suppress those vampiric urges? Because he can drink blood just fine. He does it to heal, and he's got his thing, whether it be an animal or, you know, the handy little hospital blood packs there. But I am wondering, especially around Tulip with Jessie, and certainly as Jessie is leaving and making Tulip seemingly more available, if his drug use and his heavy drug use, even possibly throughout a huge chunk of his life, is done to suppress those vampiric urges, which would make Cass, in some ways, in his harshness, also very sympathetic. I would love to see if that is kind of explored in the storyline, because I think that would be real interesting stuff to dive into a little bit more. But the final confrontation with Denis, of course, he's already fallen into it, playing with the underwear, and I do believe that was Tulip's underwear. I thought for a moment it might have been one of the prostitutes or one of Denis's conquests that secretly happened and that he kept, and perhaps that it was. I would have thought that Cass would not have left it on his bed if it was Tulip's. But it seemed to imply that seemed to be that push of grabbing. And maybe it was just sort of the sexual, physical act of having those panties there was just sort of the push to, well, why don't you go after the girl? Whichever way that they were planning to go with, it totally made sense. And I love that last line that Cass has under his breath is, I can't be a good person, I can't be good with her, I can't be trusted with you around, because he's a bad influence. And Cass had to take responsibility for what he had done. So, goodbye, Denis. Great way for him to go out, heart-wrenching, but necessary, and really the only way, because you couldn't leave him preying around New Orleans. And if you don't have a Denis, then you don't need your dog Pedro around, which is also getting to be both a reminder and a temptation. Quick little note there, I loved when they were in the car and he was looking down, when Cass was looking down at the dog, the reflection on his glasses was sort of that setting sun. That image right there. Almost perfectly recreated. I just thought that was a great moment, in a way sort of a setting moment on this particular part of the story. And Tulip. Oh, so sad. I mean, well, a necessary arc, really. I mean, not entirely unexpected. We do have the foreshadowing at the beginning of the episode. We don't really know how that was all going to play out. And it was great because when everything did happen, I'd kind of forgotten about it until the last little moment. But Tulip's little arc here, getting away. I love they're trying, that Tulip and Jessie are each waiting for each other to send a message. You know, but each one at that time is kind of too proud to be the first one to make that step forward. And that's kind of the complications in their relationship. The scene in the drugstore. There was such an interesting moment there when the cashier is being just sort of a racist prick and says that statement of no offense, ma'am. And Tulip's response of, that's kind of up to me. You know, that is true. When you say no offense, you are apologizing in the sense of no offense was meaning. But that's true on the receiving end, is that that's kind of up to the person that it was said to. So I thought that was an interesting moment. And of course the cashier had to push it with the whole ID and triple checking it. So yeah, I think he totally deserved what got him. That was perfectly done. Perfect Tulip. And even her attempt there to be generous to the person with the baby who is stealing in order to provide, they don't want to have anything to do with it. Was that a race thing or was it a theft thing? I kind of felt that it was also a race thing right there too. Time to get out of New Orleans for Tulip. But that lip gloss that she got at the liquor store also paid back in the sense of dropping it, allowed her to find the camera, which quickly figures out what was going on, because Tulip is smart, realizes immediately the camera was associated with Grail, the people in white, to get Jessie. But the one opportunity to kind of reach out and fix that, she's already stepped away. There's already been too much between her and Jessie. And again, if just Jessie had just texted, just reached out one more time. But pride cometh before the fall is the saying, and you would think that a preacher would probably remember that. However, the fall in this case is Tulips with the face-off with Featherstone, who in the scene previously really was expressing her bloodthirstiness. So not surprising. I love that it was Hoover coming out of the bathroom that sort of tipped the whole thing off. I mean, okay, the manual really tipped things off, but that was the perfect spark into that scene. Just walked out, it's like, bitch, and just steps back out of scene. That was perfect Hoover. But that does lead us to that final moment, the shot. Yes, that distance, the screwdriver's not going to do any good versus a gun. But that whole final bit between Cass and Jessie in fighting to save Tulip. You see the love that both of them have for this woman, trying to do whatever they can. And really, Cass doing as much as he can to keep her human. Turning her wasn't his first thought. That was his last thought when things were right at the end. So, I mean, it's that constant conflict. I loved how the whole arc was done and how Jessie was actually trying to find all these different ways to do it. Calmly, surprisingly so, as Tulip was bleeding out there all over the floor. And then the big final fight between the two of them. Can't have her turned, but this is where Jessie remembers growing up in Angelville and the chicken that was brought back to life, which is why he says, let her die, because if she's dead and not turned, he can take her back to Angelville where she could be brought back for a price. We know that it works because we do have that final shot of the chicken running across the road as the car pulls in. So, you know, there's sort of the little insight there. But that is, of course, where we leave things, and this is where we're going to be moving into for Season 3. Got to bring Tulip back, and there is going to be a price. What that price is going to be, probably pretty steep. All right, just a couple of small things. One, I loved the opening bit where Jessie is already smelling out the cops. I thought that was perfect. It was a great moment, asking for blood and everything, and he just says it, officer. Nice long pause, and then, stupid Angelville. It was just, that was nice. We've had some discussion in the comments about whether or not Jessie's soul, that 1%, was actually extracted out of the Saint of Killers. And that does seem to have been the case if Hairstar was telling the truth as Jessie drove off to try and go save Tulip at the end of the episode. Seemed to say, come back and for the rest of your soul. Now, that could be the case. It could be Hairstar lying. He certainly has no problem doing that. But what I was wondering if, especially going into Angelville and the cost and everything, I'm curious if not having all of his soul will end up being a benefit to Jessie. I don't know, in some sort of control thing or whatever. I'm not sure how it would play off. But just because that's sort of perpetuated, I'm curious if, while it seems to be a negative, that may end up actually helping Jessie. Does Tulip think that the SPF 100 really is going to be enough to protect Cass? Or did she get so much because she thought maybe layering would help the protection? I don't know. I'm kind of curious. I'd love to see if they play with this again and actually do some testing. Now, one thing that's not working for Jessie right now is, of course, Genesis, which keeps having this little crackly problem that's going on. And since it's not something that the Grail seems to be doing, the lack of Genesis seemed to have irked Hairstar just a little bit. I've been trying to figure out what exactly might be going on. Now, the first time this happened was a couple episodes ago, right after Hairstar played all of the prayers for Custer, for Jessie, and made the first offering to become the new Messiah. And I'm wondering if Genesis itself is pushing against the idea. I mean, part of me was wondering if it was because Jessie doesn't have all of his soul, that might have been some issue. But of course, he was still using the voice. He used it immediately on Saint of Killers, and it was for at least a while still working if he pushed it, if he seemed to concentrate on things. Now, of course, it seems to be out. I'm pretty sure he was concentrating as much as he could to save Tulip. So I am wondering if this is something that Genesis itself is stopping Jessie from using because he doesn't want him to become the new Messiah. Maybe he doesn't want him to choose sides, being a progeny of both a devil and an angel at the same time. Just kind of curious about that. Oh, and also, is this going to pay off in a beneficial way when he's in Angelville? Because if he has a price to pay and he still had Genesis working, that could have made things go really bad. But without Genesis working, perhaps that's going to save Jessie and everyone else from, I don't know, giving too much unnecessary power to Crème L'Angel. And of course, the final shot we have is dog watching. Or, God watching through the dog suit there. Really, when they first did that camera twist, I was really wondering. I was like, oh, it's just the mask sitting there. And then I was like, it looks like it's hung. Oh my God, did God hang himself after doing drugs and listening to jazz in a seedy hotel room? Bad. But no, he's just in the bathroom, thank God. And is stepping out into the light. My guess is that means one of the things we'll also be seeing next season is the actual All-Father coming down. A lot of stuff in the comics people have been talking about in the comments, really looking forward to. So a lot of fun opportunities there. But that is the wrap-up for us for this season. This is it. It was awesome, wasn't it? I had so much fun. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and all of your comments and thoughts and the sharing back and forth. Really, it was just a blast. I love the whole tone of the show. The acting is amazing. There's so many great, powerful acting moments peppered throughout these episodes, throughout the shows. Really, the characters, the actors can really dive into things. And then, of course, like the scene of the week this week, turn around and just have the biggest fun possible. It's got to be a blast to work on the show. It certainly comes through in the final product. So that's it. We're going to have to wait for next year for season 3, but we'll be Angelville, we'll be All-Father, and of course we do have Hitler loose on the world. So that is a lot of excitement. Gonna wrap things up though for us right here. So for one last time for this season, if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, what are your expectations for season 3? Please throw those down in the section below. Let's chat a little bit more, keep the show alive just a little bit longer for us. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. Please subscribe if you are not. A lot of great shows coming up this fall. You won't want to miss any of them. You won't if you're a subscriber. Do it by hitting my face right here. And I will throw up one of our random reviews right here. You can check that out. All right, so that's it for me. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.